Chainsawing is a familiar sound after disasters. Downed trees and debris, with accompanying crews of volunteers working diligently to clean up the damage, is a familiar pattern for those living on the Gulf Coast. Today we're talking with a group of young people who have signed on to conservation and disaster recovery work, getting their hands dirty, going out into fields, planting native plants, removing invasives, cleaning up after disasters, and performing the real labor required to make our community green spaces more prepared for environmental challenges and threats. There's a lot of attention to the toll climate change takes on young people. Terms like eco-anxiety, climate grief, and climate anxiety are all popular ways to describe the feelings of concern facing young adults. But young people are also leading the way in making our world a better place to live, working to improve our environment and directly engaging themselves in environmental work. I'm Weston Twardowski, an instructor in Rice University's Environmental Studies program and the program manager of the Diluvial Houston Initiative, and you're listening to Gulf Streams on KPFT Houston 90.1 FM, Galveston 89.5 FM, and Huntsville 89.7 FM, where we talk with leading experts and community leaders to better understand the environmental problems and potential solutions facing our community. So today we're speaking with a team from American Youthworks, an organization dedicated to youth education and training that works to connect young people to environmental careers and engagement in communities. And here with us are Ellison Westphal, who is the Houston Baton Rouge Site Director, Evan Tiffany, Community Engagement Specialist, and a team of former Conservation Corps members and leaders, Nova Morales, Kim Palma, and Seth Carr. And so we're really delighted to talk to you all and learn more about what American Youthworks is and does.
Awesome. Thank you.
So just to start us off a little, maybe Allison, can you tell us a little, what is American Youthworks? What is the organization's goals and where did it come from?
It is an Austin-based initially organization that's now expanded to multiple locations, including Houston and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The organization as a whole is focused on giving opportunities to youth to grow and serve is kind of our catchphrase. And we do that in two different ways. One is through our Youth Build program, which is based in Austin, which kind of funnels some people through getting their GED while learning some skills on the job training type things. And then we do our Conservation Corps program in all of our locations, which is what these individuals are also a part of, where we focus on environmental stewardship as a pathway to serve the community, to learn if that's a career option that you want to have. And even if it's not, you become a future steward in whatever role you're in. And then hopefully, like all of these people, actually, to some degree, end up in a career pathway where you're learning on the job while serving the community and developing your leadership skills. So that's pretty much our biggest focus, is on serving the community in a way that actually is meeting their needs as opposed to us dictating it to them.
That's great. Evan, I don't know if you want to say more about that. I know you're the community engagement specialist, and I'm curious about, what does that community engagement on the ground look like, and what are the kind of communities that you're thinking about?
To expand on what Allison said, we really are trying to focus more on finding out from the community what the community needs, because the community knows best what they need for themselves. And so some of this work has been putting together this impact leadership team, because the alumni are part of the community who we want to serve. And so the idea with this team is that we will have a group of people who are familiar with what it's like to be a member, what it's like to be a part of the community, and to be able to use their own knowledge and their own leadership skills to have a voice and be able to make an impact, to have a more beneficial impact on the community through our programs.
Great. And so I'd love to turn now to some of these former members who I think are all kind of recent alum. And I'm curious both in how you found out about American Youthworks and what drew you into wanting to work with them, but also, since we've hinted at a little bit, this is focusing on young people. How old were you when you got involved in this work and doing conservation work?
I can chime in. So I was 22 years old when I first joined my first Conservation Corps crew, and I actually heard about TXCC after my first term of public service, which was with the Northwest Youth Corps based in Eugene, Oregon. And then after a 2.5-month term up there in the Pacific Northwest, I kind of still wanted to ride that wave of wanting to get out and do field work and like actually get dirty myself. And being a native Houstonian, when I heard about TXCC, I was just so excited about it because it was an opportunity to give back to my own community and learn things and actually see the impact that environmental change has on my local community. So that was really special and fun. And my term was 6 months. We did so many projects all over Houston, and it's really, really enjoyable.
Well, I joined like around at 24 years of age, and but my reasons were kind of like radical because at the moment I was studying for marine biology, and I wanted to basically, of course, get hands-on experience, but at the same time know about like our ecosystem and all the above, which can also benefit us at the long run. But yeah, that's basically how I ended up joining the TXCC team.
Great. And Seth, what about you?
I joined TXCC the beginning of 2022. I was a native Houstonian, but I did my first term in Austin with their conservation and deployment, their conservation and disaster team there. And there I was able to get a lot of really good work experience, beginning experience into the field of conservation. I was able to network a little bit. I met a lot of really cool crew members who were also, into the same that shared the same interests that I did. And actually through that first term, I was able to further my path with the Texas Conservation Corps with the Houston-based office, and I was able to join the Gulf Corps there. And from there, I was able to get a lot more. Relative work experience. I was able to get certifications like the S212, Red Card certifications.
What are those for those who don't know?
So the S212 is for chainsaw.
Oh, okay.
There are basically different categories. There's different types of fellers, feller A, B, C. I was entry level, so I was a feller A. The Red Card, that basically is a wildland firefighter. So to become that, you need to get certified. You have to take one of 3 pack tests. We took the arduous pack test, which is a 45-minute hike and 3 miles, or 3 miles. You have to make it in 45 minutes to qualify. And unfortunately, I left my term before I was able to actually complete a burn project. But I mean, it's still great to have on your resume, and it's still great to, look forward to in the future. Hopefully, I could keep that someday.
Yeah, so some really practical skills there that you're thinking about.
Yeah.
So I'm curious from the 3 of you. So what there's really fantastic skills that you're all talking about and thinking about. I'm curious if you can talk about specific projects that you were involved in or things that you especially on, I know some of you were working on the conservation side. I think some of you also did some disaster recovery work. If there are things that for you were really meaningful or impactful in your time with the Corps.
So my most favorite project and something that I'm so glad that I got to do, because it's definitely shaped my interest probably forever from now forward, is my crew and I spent probably about 2.5 months working with the Texas City Prairie Preserve at a prairie in Texas City, removing invasive species. So the Corps that I was on was called Gulf Corps, and it was funded by a NOAA administered grant. And a part of that was they really wanted to see how different crews were recording the impacts of our restoration efforts on land that had been worked on in previous years, and then how it would look in the future. And so we did a lot of work removing an invasive species called Chinese tallow. And it was really cool getting to do this hands-on monitoring. It was photo monitoring, and we would use an application, I forget the name of it, and we would do data points and transects, and it was so cool to say like, okay, this is the data that my crew has worked on, and this is what we have to present to NOAA, and then look at that compared to what last year's crew did, and then maybe what next year's crew will do. So that was kind of the first experience that I got to see the hands-on impacts of our work, and we use different softwares like ArcGIS and then field maps. So, and now in my current work, I work a lot on restoration efforts, specifically involving invasive species. So
what is your current work?
Currently, I'm a natural resource specialist at the Houston Arboretum and Nature Center, 155-acre nature center just west of the Galleria.
Yeah.
So much smaller scale compared to a lot of these coastal prairies that we were working on, but relatively the same stuff. And everything I've learned has been super applicable and, in my opinion, set me up for a really, really good start in being a young person in the environmental realm, specifically here in Southeast Texas.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like all the work that you would have been doing with American Youthworks would just directly carry over into the kind of career and field that you're aiming for now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say when talking to people about TXCC and conservation corps in general, that the work that you do is 100% going to set you up for whatever you want next, but you do get out of it what you put into it. So it's so many of the partnerships that I made during my time on a crew, Artist Boat, Armand Bayou Nature Center, Galveston Bay Foundation, Herman Park, that really, really set me up to have a higher confidence and just general knowledge level about local environmental issues.
Great.
Yeah.
And Seth and Kim, are you both still working in kind of conservation or environmental spaces, or are you going elsewhere in your careers? What's going on in your world?
Well, I am planning to return again to do another term.
Oh,
But
great.
at the moment, I'm still like, well, right now at the moment, I'm trying to finish off my associates in science, and just at the moment, of course, also working at this nonprofit organization. But honestly, that much going on in my world, but but that, but yeah, when it comes to TXC, like I think one of the things that really caught my attention was when we went to Memorial Park and we was doing some work in the little bodies of water they had at the time, removing cattails and other invasives, and it really catch my attention that like those small things that we don't see, in our day and day lives, like we don't see it as relevant, but they actually really are relevant. And it's like how just one certain plant can affect the whole ecosystem in certain places, so it really made me wonder, like, wow, like what if everything were supposed to be, how much can benefit them but also us as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, invasive species are something that, yeah, we certainly spend a lot of time talking about and thinking about. So, I mean, that's valuable work, but also I love just hearing the way that it's reshaped the way that you're thinking about where you live and the environment around you and those kind of relationships. Seth, what about you? What's going on in your career?
So I actually ended my second term with Gulf Corps in Houston about halfway because I was able to get a job offer for a small consulting firm up in North Dallas. So basically what my work consists of is I'm a field biologist and I work for the Natural Resource Department. And there we kind of do a lot of consulting projects. I'm currently out at a work site right now. We're doing a tree survey for land that's probably going to be developed in the near future. I was able to use a lot of the things that I learned with my time with the AmeriCorps and the Conservation Corps is pretty applicable to this position that I have now.
Yeah, I mean, that's terrific. It seems like these kind of forays into conservation corps, it makes total sense. And Allison, I don't know if you want to talk more about this, this training component. And clearly we're seeing it from the three alums that you brought today that, it's very directly applicable. But I think that's a major goal, certainly of your organization, but conservation corps more broadly is thinking about that kind of practical job skills training. And so can you talk to us a little about the importance of that? And clearly, three trajectories we've just heard from alums, but if there are other ways that you're seeing that being really valuable to your alumni.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that one of the unique things about our program and programs like it in, across the country that are conservation corps is that they spend an extended period of time. Like our shortest period of time is 40 hours a week, approximately for 3 months. And these individuals have been with us either 6 months as a term, all the way up to a year at a time, where they work not just training that our staff provides, but they work along project partners to help them meet their conservation goals. So our project partners are their future employers or their future reference letter. So we emphasize that a lot because they do work with Houston Parks Board and Memorial Park Conservancy. And if we don't work at Houston Arboretum, they know somebody who worked in the Memorial Park next door. And so we really work alongside and support the staffs of those other conservation and environmental stewardship oriented agencies and organizations, as well as the city and the county, to make sure that this is them learning from people who are doing it for a job, building relationships with people who are doing it for their job, for their career. They're asking, like Nova said, like you get out what you put in. If you never talk to your partner as you're working, you're not going to learn as much. But if you take that opportunity to like, how did you get here? What got you into this work? What should I learn while I'm here so that we can come out of this ready and more hiring ready. And we do other professional development as well, like especially in the Gulf Corps program, but across our programs with career training of job searches and mock interviews and resume development and conflict management. So we work on a lot of the teamwork and soft skills, the real life skills, so that no matter where you go, you have those, but also you learn on the job. And that's why we have crew leaders and crew members to practice those interpersonal dynamics as well. Like we send them out to the field by themselves. We check in on them, but we introduce them to the partners and they are the ones communicating with them. So they're getting real life long on the job training so that Memorial Park calls me when they have a vacancy. And I think at this point we have maybe 5 or 6 former members on their staff. We're basically filling their ranks. Right. So that's really the main thing for me is that we ask their feedback and, pre, mid, and post term. Are you getting what you need? What are you hearing? Do you need more communication skills? Okay, let's run a training on that. And that's where Evan kind of steps in too. Like he helps support the members with some of those things and some of our other staff. Do you need more career development training? Do you need more plant ID? Okay, let's go get that. So that's really what we're working on building more of, but that's really what drives us. We want to have real-time feedback from the employer, from the member, from the community to make sure that we're giving them what prepares them for their goals.
Well, and I'm curious, I've heard a couple of you, and I think you mentioned a moment ago, the relationship to AmeriCorps. What is that relationship with AmeriCorps? And maybe more broadly, this kind of term for those who aren't even familiar with the idea of a conservation corps, it's certainly something that I think has been in the air for several years, certainly with folks for the Green New Deal kind of calling for these ideas of climate corps and conservation corps of let's create jobs. We know there's going to be more climate emergencies. We know there's going to be more need for conservation effort. So let's put people to work doing that. And the landing of the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the Biden administration's large kind of environmental climate policy. There's been some support for that. But I mean, AmeriCorps has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious a little bit just about the structure of, where I think we're hearing more about these from a variety of angles now. And so is the moment ripe for conservation corps? Are we seeing a supporting and funding and infrastructure? And how is it that, your organization's able to put folks in the field?
Yeah, we kind of have a multi-prong approach. We are an AmeriCorps organization.
Right.
So the Climate Corps is basically, it was a bunch of conservation corps advocating for that idea because we're already doing it. Now we're just putting our name on it, right? But it is an AmeriCorps program where some of our, to get into the weeds, funding comes to help support their, because they receive a living stipend for their work. It's not volunteer. It's we make sure that they get some funds to do the work so they can survive.
So that is very much a stipend. It is.
Yes. And so because of that, we have in the last few years also sourced other funds to raise them and subsidize that.
Oh, that's terrific.
So we put our crews out, whether it's a short-term youth crew in the summer or all of them with a $15 to $17 equivalent.
Wow.
And healthcare and some of these other services, which in my opinion, still doesn't go far enough, especially how hard it is to live in a city like this one, how hard transportation is. But we source other things like grants and project partner shares, like cost shares, like some of our project partners pay fees for their service. So that helps subsidize. But the AmeriCorps program in particular, that component allows us to get some reimbursement to cover some of their wages. It gives them a educational award at the end of their service if they complete what's their service hours is what it's called. They have a term of service that's 300 hours or 675 hours. So we work it out to something like a 40-hour equivalent. But what they need to do is attain those number of hours within the window of time we said their term would be. If they meet those goals, then they get an education of service award, which, for example, Kim might be using right now to pay for continuing education certifications. Wow. They can pay down federal student loans with it. There's student loan forbearance that comes along with it. So if they went to school and they stopped to do a term of service, there will be a pause, which was less relevant in the last couple of years, but now becomes very relevant again. So their interest isn't accruing and they're not losing time on that. But those are kind of the main pieces of that. And then there are certain national service days they have to show up for, which they're showing up as a service day every day, but these are special, like MLK Day. For example, we will, like last year, we went to the A-Leaf Community Garden and we helped plant trees and did some cleanup at that garden. Or this year we went somewhere, to another community partner. We went with Precinct 4 and planted trees. So it just depends, but those are kind of the main components. And then outside of that, conservation corps, not all of them use AmeriCorps, but they are a network of corps around the country that have this similar model in our adaptation. And that's part of why we have this impact leader team we started. Is Harris County in Houston, as you know, is the size of many states.
Yep.
Right. So what works in Montana might not work here. What works in Austin might not work here.
Yeah.
Right. You have to culturalize and contextualize it to what's needed here and the challenges here. They might drive for 2 hours to an in-town partner.
Yeah.
And that's not something that, Montana faces. They face totally different problems, right? So ours is, what's the challenge of a member who has to drive or ride on a bus for 2 hours to get to the office to then get in a car to go to do the work, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at creative funding solutions. Like we did receive some funding from the IRA through the Harris County USDA Urban Community Forestry Grant. We're ironing out.
Great.
So that was a $15 million award that went to the county and we're a subrecipient of with HARC and a couple of other Harris County partners. So those are things that we are constantly applying for while we're also working with partners like Houston Parks Board who will contract us for, half the work that they get done because they don't have the staff that we kind of provide the staff and staff in training for.
Well, and I imagine, not to just focus on you too much for the moment, but, you're thinking about Houston and Baton Rouge. I mean, you're working across these sites and we talk a lot about the Gulf Coast on the show writ large. And so I am curious about, as you mentioned, of course, there's going to be different things community to community, but, are there commonalities across the Gulf Coast? And especially as you're growing and seeing these organizations, your organization popping up really in Texas and Louisiana, how has that been to kind of spread across the region, especially out of Austin now to multiple locations?
Yeah, I think there's challenges and opportunities both, right? Like
Very diplomatic.
the challenges, like I said, the culture is different everywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, everyone's relational, but especially in my experience thus far, Houston and Baton Rouge are so deeply rooted in, I got to know you first, let's have coffee for an hour and then we'll talk about whatever it is we're here to talk about officially, and if you don't have place-based relationship building, it's really hard to get somewhere that's really getting at what do you need and how can we help and how can you help us help you, which is really what we look at. We look at the synergy of we provide this, you need this, and we need this, which you have, right? I don't want to reinvent the wheel 5 times. So what can we do across sites that are consistent, which the Gulf Corps program is one of those things. And so it's awesome because, for example, our field coordinator is going to help us from Baton Rouge do a training here, and we might send someone there or do something together like the Gulf Corps program convenes all of the Gulf Corps member programs for a universal training every year. But what I might need with our Clean and Green program, which is with the DA's office and is a litter abatement diversion program, that doesn't exist in Baton Rouge right now, but maybe we can model something that there is a litter abatement need and interest there, but what can we do with what we have and tweak it to match the culture, the needs, the community's interest. They want to do volunteer. Here, the DA wants to divert, nonviolent misdemeanors, which is awesome. Avoid court, do something, learn about the environment. And then some of them have become staff and members out of that program for us. That's an awesome tool for outreach, but it's also a different way of going about it. So what I try to do, and work smarter, not harder, is look where, like you said, we definitely have the same kind of needs in the Gulf Coast to put in solutions that mitigate the risk and the damage that storms are going to bring. But like Seth mentioned, he was on the conservation and disaster crew. We also have conservation and disaster recovery crews in both that do conservation when conservation is on the docket. But if an emergency comes up, that's how I met Seth. We we were both in a deployment in Guam of all places because of a typhoon.
Wow.
And so the deployment side of that is what AmeriCorps calls their AmeriCorps disaster response team. That's another part of the AmeriCorps program. We call up members of those program crews. And if it's possible with their capacity, they deploy to anywhere within potentially a week's notice. Like Seth probably had a week notice to decide if he was going to go to Guam for a month.
Wow.
So those are the kinds of universal things that kind of somebody has a wildfire or a flood or, a tornado or a typhoon anywhere, and we will go to them pretty much at the drop of a hat, not for the initial, but for the cleanup, like mucking and gutting homes, removing, that's where his chainsaw skills come in, and Nova's to help clear debris from somebody's driveway or right of ways. So.
No, and I mean, that seems certainly, along the Gulf Coast, we're not, unfamiliar with disasters and disaster recovery. And so, I mean, it makes immediate sense to me that these two things go together in this way of, being able to have people who are around and on staff and doing the regular kind of daily work that has to get done, and then being able to switch seems like an incredibly important resource. Seth, I wondered, would you like to tell us a little about, that experience of going to Guam and that decision to go out there and to sign on?
Yeah, so whenever I was first told that there was possibly going to be a deployment to Guam, I was kind of, in disbelief, like, wow, we're going to fly halfway across the world. We have a week to decide whether or not we're going to go. But I mean, it was a very eye-opening and growth experience for a deployment. We were working a lot with, especially with homeowners who had lost, many of them who had lost, their homes, parts of their homes, all their possessions. Many of their homes were damaged from trees and from the storm itself, flooding, debris, and all of that. So it was really neat to be out there to go out with engage with the community, tell them a little bit about who we were. A lot of the people that we worked for, they would ask us, like, who are y'all, where are y'all from, what program are y'all a part of? And, we were always happy to, share that with them, and they were always very interested and wanted to learn more. And of course, we did a lot of work here. It was 6-day weeks. A lot of chainsawing, so it was a very great experience.
No, that sounds, I mean, that's hard work. I think anybody who's done any kind of disaster recovery, which is a lot of us along the Gulf Coast, I mean, that's literally backbreaking work, but also just emotionally taxing. So, I mean, it's kind of amazing that you've got a whole team that ready to sign up and go off at a moment's notice. That's very impressive of young people who signed on for this, which I'm curious about. And I heard 19 earlier, and I forgot how old the others said they were when they started. But what is the age generally of most of your Climate Corps members?
The crews typically are 18 to 28, sometimes skew a little older. And we do run a tribal youth crew with the Alabama Coshada tribe,
Oh,
and
wow.
we will be starting another one with the Gina Band of the Choctaw in Louisiana,
Okay.
modeled similarly with the Forest Service partnership. They go down to 16. That creates, different challenges of we can't have a 16-year-old drive one of our vehicles. We have to get special permission from their parents or guardians. But typically it would be the 18 to 28 range is kind of the wheelhouse.
Yeah.
We've had a couple that are in their like mid 30s, but then that's more just are you going to be okay being the 35-year-old and 22-year-olds ordering you around? But everybody, I mean, it's really, I think, largely been lately in the mid 20s is probably our most of our members lately.
Well, and I'm curious amongst the three of you, both a little bit about why you wanted to sign up, but also just, as young people, it's something that we talk about and hear a lot about. And certainly as a teacher, it's something that I encounter a lot. Is just young folks are really concerned about the future, right? And really worried about the health of the planet and where we are, and, certainly our environment, but just how the climate is changing and how fast it is. And I think all of us after last summer in Houston, are very keenly aware of these realities. But I'm curious about, both your motivations for joining and, what made you want to sign up, but also, how do you feel about what's going forward? And do you feel that you've maybe come away with some skills or ideas now that give you hope in certain ways, or things that you want to pass on to other, folks who maybe want to do this work?
I found motivation to do TXCC from, of course, my term before that, but also honestly fear. I feel the more knowledge generates interest, And then the more you're interested in something, you're just automatically inclined to care about it. So when you find out about all of these environmental issues, which a lot of us learn about when you study this in college, you're just taught issue after issue after issue and not really any solutions. So environmental field work can kind of be like the brainstorming process, like, okay, this invasive species is a problem. I'm going to go kill it, but now what? And so it's always learning. And I say that it's really a kind of informal learning, which can be, in my opinion, way, way more impactful than formal learning in a classroom or whatever. So, I mean, it makes you super, super just wound up in this. The more you know, it kind of becomes an obsession, at least in my case. I have also
I don't think you're alone there.
yeah, and people that turn a blind eye, that choose not to be obsessed, they're doing that to spare themselves. And if you're doing that, you're not doing things for the right reason at all. So if there's just so much to know, and the more you know, the more you feel inclined to want to do something about it. And I could also be very environmentally anxious. They call it eco-anxiety. Doing this kind of work makes me feel a little bit more at peace. And you sleep great because you're running chainsaw for 7 hours straight. And then, like Allison mentioned, driving 2 hours to the project site, 2 hours back to the office, and then, 30 minutes, an hour back home in Houston with traffic. So you're tired. You wouldn't just wake up and want to subject yourself to these kind of conditions unless you really cared about it.
It also seems like you really like the work, though. I mean, you
I
seem
do.
very excited about it, I have to say.
I didn't at the beginning.
No, she did not. She's like, I don't want to work outside
I-
all the time. I'm pretty sure I don't want to do that.
I mean, I had a hard time. My first crew, I slept in a tent for 2.5 months. And it was me and 4 others. It was me and 4 others. And they're all over the place in the country right now, but they could totally attest. I cried every single day. I swear. And I'm not proud of it. It was hard mentally, physically, emotionally. I'd never done anything like it. I'm a city girl and I was in the woods in Oregon. And then here in Texas, it's hot. There's mosquitoes, there's mud, but you get over that. And then everybody finds their little niche subject. Mine happen to be plants. I'm really, really big into botany and I care a lot about our local plants. And then in TXCC crew as well, it was just me and 3 guys. And I was the crew leader. And we just had so much fun. I had never worked that closely with solely men. And I never drove a van either. So I'm driving a van, 45 South, headed to Galveston in 8 a.m. rush hour traffic. I mean, just that'll teach you something. So we had fun and it's so worthwhile. And I always tell people to do it. And I've had the pleasure for the last 2 summers to lead an educational field day for TXC Summer Youth Crew at the Houston Arboretum. So, though not much older than them, I resonate with their feelings of uncertainty about the future. Seasonal work can be hard because you don't have stability. You're like, what's next? But it's so worthwhile. And I continue to see the good effects of that term that I invested time in.
Kim or Seth, do either of you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Well, what motivated me to join TXC is when I took action for my goals. Well, and by me saying that is like basically like visualizing the benefits of nature, of course, if it's properly taken care of and where you store it at. But what really like my motivation to this was just what benefits just nature can give humans when it comes to health wise. Like I read this article a while back where they found this lice. I can't remember the specific name for it, but it was like I think it was in the Mariana Trench, and it potentially has potential to cure Alzheimer's. So I was like, man, that's interesting. Like, what else in nature can actually help, us in general? So I think my biggest motivation was that. What especially from the things I've learned from TXCC, like all these experiences I've gained, all the knowledge I've gained, it really made me think like, wow, like I can actually break so much from this how you say it, this organization, and basically you put it into use. And but quite honest with you, that's really what motivated me the most, the knowledge of it, and then what can I do with the knowledge that I gained from TXCC.
I guess my motivation for joining the AmeriCorps programs was I just graduated about a month prior to joining my first term. So I felt like, okay, well, I have the education. I've read countless research articles, written a few, just for classes. Now I want to get some good work experience. So I've discovered these programs, so I'll just kind of searching for things to get into. And through that, I kind of read up, did some more research on the program, found out that, oh, great, there's several offices located within Texas, in Austin, Houston. And so I was like, okay, yeah, this is something I could definitely do. I applied, I was able to start my program, get a lot of the certifications and work experience, things that would be relevant for a career in conservation, natural resources, pretty much the environmental sector. And yeah, I really enjoyed the first term, so I decided to go for a second term to, concentrate more on a specific field. I wanted to get more involved with conservation, environmental monitoring, things that related to that. So the Gulf Corps, it's funded and works closely with the Nature Conservancy and NOAA, which were, two organizations that I really feel like would be an end goal, job or end goal position to take for a career. And so yeah, that was really my strongest motivation to join, just to get a lot of experience and to just kind of venture into the world of conservation and see what's out there.
Well, and that's kind of perfect because my next question is relatedly, for folks or for other young folks, maybe even slightly younger folks who are, dealing with some of the same questions, concerns, but also have some of the same interests. What advice would you have for them if they want to either pursue conservation work, but also just, grapple with the reality of the world? And I'm curious about advice you might have for them that, it sounds like, Nova, you really think, getting your hands dirty helps people to take some ownership and feel a little better in that space. And so I'm curious if any of you have ideas or advice for younger folks who maybe also want to pursue something in this vein.
Yeah, I can start. The advice I'd probably give is don't be afraid to get dirty. It's a field you work outside, so you're going to be in situations where you're going to be treading through mud, water, waist deep in poison ivy. There's going to be a lot of different things to see and get into out there. So don't be afraid to get dirty. Expect working odd hours. You may be up early, 5 a.m, or working late in the evening, past sundown. So yeah, just, keep an open mind.
My advice would be just to try it. If you talked to me in high school, I would never have believed that I would be doing a job like this. And it's like a stepping stone. Try it, put yourself out there. We've mentioned before, you get out of it what you put into it. These project partners, they're real people. They were once in your shoes. Just be yourself. And the Houston environmental realm can be kind of tricky to maneuver. There's so many of us now wanting to get involved in this kind of work that it can be kind of competitive. I've also heard of a lot of people that get really good jobs in this field locally by starting out as a volunteer. So reach out to other organizations, become a volunteer, join the Texas Master Naturalist Program. We have our Gulf Coast chapter, which is an amazing chapter. There's so many things that can be done to get your foot into it, and better now than never, or honestly, whenever, because it's never too late to try to do something that you will really like. We all deserve to have a career that we feel passionate about. I think so many young people get sucked into something and think that they're stuck. I'd never want to do something that I don't love every single day.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, it is. Our field is I feel like we're lucky. Because a lot of people see it as, oh, you get to work outside with the flowers. Like, okay, well, it's also sometimes really, really hot. Or you try to do something a million ways and never succeed. So it's all about trying.
Lastly, I'll just ask Allison or Evan, either of you, for folks who want to learn more about American Youthworks and the work that you're doing, if they maybe want to get involved, how should they learn more about what you're doing?
I will tell you this, Evan, I'm going to punt it to you to some extent. We can go to ayw.org, which is our website, and go into the Texas Conservation Corps or the Conservation Corps area and say join TXCC, and it'll show you the different options. I mean, for sure, if you're a member of the API community, we're launching a pilot for an affinity crew this summer for members of the community who want to see other people like them doing the work and feel supported in it. We are working with Herman Park Conservancy and some other partners, and we're in the development phases of getting some of the other partners on board, but that's going to be a summer term from June 10th to August 9th. We are actively recruiting for our Houston Environmental Action Team, which is a Monday through Friday crew that will be starting in the end of April. So you can go in and join a crew for that. That one does not go camping and does not go to Guam. So depending on if that's a plus or a minus for you, we have the other crew, the conservation and disaster crew that is also recruiting right now that will maybe go to Guam or not, but it is on the table. So you have to want to do that as an option. They get to use chainsaws. Heat does not use that so much. And then just like these folks here are doing, we also are always looking for other people to help us, promote, support, provide professional expertise. We want to make sure that, like Nova said, we look at it as you're here to try. Just put your any experience is welcome and wanted, because you never know. And to be honest, we need as many environmental stewards in the banking business, if not more, in oil and gas, in every walk of life. We need people to do it every day as part of their life. Not everybody needs to do it as a career. And the more you know about it, the more you understand, like Kim said, man, this little plant can make a mess of things, or it can change a life and cure cancer, but we don't know if we don't have people who are taking care of it. And we all benefit from that. So if you're interested in helping in any way, shape, or form, I'm going to send you to Evan and tell you to email him, Evan Tiffany, and his email is on our website, but I can say it too. It's etiffany@ayw.org. And if Evan has anything else to add, I will have him round it out.
That all sounds great to me, Allison. Yeah, so anyone that wants to explore what a partnership could look like, or you just have questions, please email me. Would love to chat with you about what that could look like, even if it's something completely new and creative. Also, we have social media accounts, so you can find us on social media, look for Texas Conservation Corps, and we'll ask Weston to link to our social media in the post for this show.
Sure, and we will put those in the podcast link. Absolutely, the radio listeners will have a harder time tracking that down, I'm afraid. But yes, we absolutely visit the website, and we'll blast out it again, AmericanYouthworks.org. Thank you all so much for your time and for sharing this wonderful work with us. It's been great getting to chat with you all.
And can I just say thank you to my new Impact Leadership Team members who are able to make it. I am so excited to have you, and so glad that you could share your each individual perspectives. That's why we have you here. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Allison and Weston.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go over to our researcher, Sienna, who has a new piece in her ongoing series of environmental myth-busting stories. So take it away, Sienna.
Hi everyone, welcome to Environmental Myth-Busting. Today, we're unraveling the misconceptions surrounding weather versus climate. And if global warming is real, why is it so cold outside? Let's find out. In February 2021, Winter Storm Uri hit Texas and crippled the state as temperatures dropped to as low as 6 degrees Fahrenheit. Millions of Texans lost power. Snow and ice paired with ultra-low temperatures caused widespread road closures and dangerous travel conditions. Yet, 2021 also brought the planet's 16th warmest February since records began. And this past winter, across large areas of the United States, from the South to the Midwest, frigid Arctic air has settled in, bringing with it rare and extreme winter conditions. Towns in Texas were grappling with energy conservation measures to prevent electrical outages, while Arkansas was experiencing record low temperatures. But here's the twist. These bitter cold snaps come on the heels of the hottest year on record. So how do we reconcile this apparent contradiction? To understand this paradox, we must first distinguish between weather and climate. Weather refers to short-term atmospheric conditions, while climate encompasses long-term patterns and trends. Essentially, climate is understood as the atmospheric conditions averaged over a long period of time and also over a large area. So, while our planet is undoubtedly warming due to climate change, it doesn't mean we'll see an end to cold snaps and blizzards. In fact, rising temperatures can lead to more extreme weather events, including harsher winters. But how does a warming planet lead to colder winters? The answer lies in the intricate interplay between global warming and atmospheric dynamics. A study published in the Journal of Nature Communication found a link between warmer Arctic temperatures and colder North American winters. As the Arctic warms at a rate 4 times faster than the rest of the planet, it destabilizes the polar jet stream. The jet stream is the band of air circling the Arctic that typically keeps the Arctic air in northern regions, but warm temperatures in the Arctic are causing the jet stream to take these wild swings, and that is allowing frigid air to plunge farther south. So this phenomenon, known as Arctic amplification, is reshaping weather patterns and contributing to these unpredictable, weird winters. Yet, despite these winter storms and extreme weather events, overall, our winters are warming. The 5th National Climate Assessment reveals that winter is warming nearly twice as fast as summer in many northern states. This is because winter exhibits a stronger response to heat-trapping gases than summers. So, for every 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit increase in temperature, the atmosphere can hold 7% more moisture. And this additional moisture, particularly in colder atmospheres, traps more heat near the surface, leading to these intricate weather patterns. But what about those record cold events that seem to defy the warming trend? Let's examine a case from January 2019 when a bitter cold snap swept portions of the northern plains and midwestern United States, plummeting temperatures below minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. However, despite these frigid conditions, the nation's average temperature for the month was nearly 3 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than normal. How is that possible? And it's all about perspective. While some regions endure record-breaking cold, others may experience above-average warmth. These short-term weather variations don't negate the broader trend of global warming. The influence of climate phenomena such as El Niño and La Niña can also exacerbate or mitigate the severity of winter weather patterns. For instance, El Niño events, characterized by warmer than average sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, tend to lead to milder winters in parts of North America. However, La Niña events, which are marked by cooler than average sea surface temperatures, can result in colder winters with increased precipitation. These natural climate oscillations show the complexity of weather and its relationship to these broader climate trends. So, what's the takeaway? In essence, the Earth is still warming, but we'll still experience bouts of cold and icy weather. So don't throw away your winter jacket quite yet. And in general, individual weather events are not indicative of broader climate trends. These winter storms and cold snaps simply remind us that weather and seasons are complex phenomena influenced by numerous factors. However, it's crucial to recognize that while we may experience cold extremes, the overall trend points towards a warming planet. As we strive to address the challenges posed by climate change, it's essential to remain vigilant, informed, and proactive in our efforts. So that's all for today's episode of Environmental Myth-Busting. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and remember, climate change is real, regardless of the weather outside. Thank you for tuning in, and see y'all next time.
Lastly, we'll turn to our researcher Jaden, who's going to tell you about some different volunteering opportunities that you can get involved with this week in Houston.
Hey y'all, I hope you're doing well. I have some really exciting volunteering opportunities coming up for you. So if you're ready to roll up your sleeves and make a difference in the Houston area, then listen up because we've got the perfect opportunity for all of you passionate young individuals that are looking to make an impact. The Global Youth Service Day is right around the corner, and they're calling for all young changemakers to join on Saturday, April 20th, 2024, for a day filled with purpose and impact. This event is being hosted by the Department of Neighborhood's Volunteer Initiatives program, and this is your chance to be part of something extremely meaningful. This year's Global Youth Service Day will take place on Denver Harbor Community Center in District H, and they're currently looking for 30 dedicated young volunteers between the ages of 12 and 25 to lend a helping hand. Together, we'll be tackling some essential projects to spruce up our community. So at this point, you may be asking, well, what exactly would I be doing? And get ready for this. We've got a perfect lineup for all of you. From raking leaves in the community garden to cleaning out flower beds and planting seeds, and even picking up litter around the park and community, there is certainly no shortage of ways to make a difference on that day. If this seems enticing, just wait because there is more. Not only will you be making a tangible impact, but you'll also be part of a youth-led initiative that's all about creating positive change from the ground up. So what are you waiting for? Whether you're a seasoned volunteer or simply looking for a way to get started in community service, the Global Youth Service Day is your chance to step up and make a difference in Houston. So join us on April 20th at the Denver Harbor Community Center, and let's show the Houston area what we can do to make it a better place. To register or to learn more, please visit the website or reach out to the Department of Neighborhoods Volunteering Initiatives program. Let's make this the best Global Youth Service Day yet. Let's work together to make Houston a much happier, healthier place for all of us to live. So with that, I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.
Finally, I want to highlight just a couple of other things you might want to put on your planner. Today at 6 p.m. at Rice University in Kraft Hall, there will be a conversation all about climate change and migration. We'll start with a conversation with Pulitzer Prize finalist Abram Lustgarten about his new book, On the Move, The Overheating Earth and the Uprooting of America, followed by a demonstration of a new tool from the Environmental Defense Fund called the Climate Vulnerability Index, and that demonstrates how different places are at risk from climate change. Finally, a group of panelists will discuss a range of issues related to climate change and migration at the end. There will be some food, there'll be some wine, there'll be free copies of Lustgarten's book, and we'll also be speaking with Abram on the program in a few weeks. So this is a great chance to learn more about his work and research and this larger topic that we've been exploring around how climate change will continue to impact migration around the world and in the U.S. Next up, on Wednesday, April 24th, from 6 to 9 p.m., there will be an environmental awareness town hall hosted by a group of local environmental organizations and featuring EPA Regional Administrator Dr. Orthea Nance. The town hall is at the Missouri City Community Center, and you can learn more by visiting Air Alliance Houston's website and their calendar at airalliancehouston.org/events. That's airalliancehouston.org/events. Lastly, I just want to plug really quick that Earth Day Houston is this Saturday, April 20th, at Discovery Green. Events will kick off at noon and they'll run till 5. It's a great way to meet other folks who are interested in learning about the environment and getting involved. So if you're around, please come over by this KPFT booth and say hi. I should be there for most of the day and I'd love to meet you. If you have questions or ideas for what you'd like featured on Gulf Streams, leave a voicemail at 713-348-4081 or email me at westont@rice.edu. Next week, we'll be talking with Abram Lustgarten all about his new book, On the Move and Climate Migration. A quick reminder that you can catch up on all of our Gulf Streams episodes anytime through our podcast, available on all major podcast platforms. If you enjoy the show, please like and subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Gulf Streams is a co-production of KPFT Houston and Rice's Center for Environmental Studies, with support from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation and the Rice Sustainability Institute's Eco Studio. Produced by Weston Twardowski. Co-produced by Joseph Campana. Audio engineer Rico Enriquez. Research support provided by Jaden Bray-Boyce and Sienna Yen. Stay tuned for the R&R Show with Ronnie Renfro and Tom Richards here on KPFT Houston 90.1 FM, Galveston 89.5 FM, and Huntsville 89.7 FM.